Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, we are back with the Sports Wars podcast. I'm your host, Pat. This is like the fifth time I've said this, the still standing, begrudging, depressed mayor of Oakland. I'm being joined by my right-hand man, Mr. Roy Morgan, who did get a win against a fledgling New York Giants last week. But, hey, a win is a win, right?
Hey man, we'll take it. We came out healthy. Luckily, I didn't pull a hamstring on my way to the podcast, or else they put me on injured reserve too. Yeah, a win is a win. We trying to keep pace. The Bucks are falling back. Falcons are making a charge. We just gotta hope Drew Brees and Cam Newton, I don't want to say pull something, but get detained somewhere. We'll just call it that.
Maybe they'll have some sort of unfortunate incident with a nightlife venue like our friends in Jacksonville.
Yeah. Don't forget to pay your bar tab, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, just don't try to dine and dash, or in this case, drink and dash. It'll end badly for you. So to go ahead and jump right into the big news of the day, as well as the big news of the weekend, for our fans, followers, loyalists in Northeast Ohio, I feel like we all kind of take our hats off for the things that you guys have to endure and have to go through. And I say this as the Raiders guy. Over the weekend, the Cleveland Cavaliers, after an 0-6 start, fire head coach Tyronn Lue. Not to be outdone, no less than 48 hours later, the Cleveland Browns fire not only head coach Hugh Jackson, the guy who fell on the sword for them during 0-16, but also infamous offensive coordinator Todd Haley. You know that guy from Pittsburgh who Ben Roethlisberger wants to punch in the face? Yeah, him. Both cut off, snip, snip, deuces, whatever analogy you want to make. They're gone. Yeah. The primary question I pose to you, Roy, and to really everyone at this point is, what planet did either one of Cleveland's ownership and brass expect these two teams to be on? How good did you legitimately expect them to be? One, a team that's post LeBron James, and two, a team with a rookie quarterback. Yeah, they got solid pieces. They got a pretty solid defense. But at the end of the day, you still got a 5'11" kid who's a rookie, who's fresh out of the college system at the helm. What did they expect was going to happen?
I mean, man, I don't honestly. Tyronn Lue, I knew. I mean, the countdown started as soon as LeBron signed his contract in LA. I didn't personally think he was going to make it through this season. But like you said, what did they expect? I mean, he's basically trying to rally this team around Kevin Love, who the announcement just came down today. He's about to miss a month with a toe injury. So
now who is it? Delusional Tristan Thompson?
Yeah, Tristan, apparently. Tristan Kardashian. Is it still a Kardashian at this point?
I'm not 100% sure what their status is. I just know, dude, wow.
So a Kardashian's baby daddy is going to be the star of this team. And what's that other kid, Colin Sexton? And JR, anything is possible Smith. So, and apparently something else I was reading earlier, the new GM for Cleveland has pretty much told whatever coach they're going to be benching Korver and J.R. Smith. They're going to, I guess, move on, attempt to trade them. I'm sure LeBron would at least like to take Korver, but after the shenanigans during Saturday's Laker game, I'm not sure LeBron would want to take JR too.
We're gonna get into that a little bit later, but I think the post traumatic stress of that type of situation is more than what Mr. James is willing to deal with at the moment.
And to the Browns, I am definitely going to touch on this a little later in our in Roy's infamous shitty shout outs. I don't get it. They kept the guy around. Obviously, this was barring a playoff experience, playoff berth. This was likely going to be Hughes last year. I don't understand doing it mid-season. And then you turn it over to the Guy Fieri lookalike in Greg Williams. So apparently he's going to be taking these bitches to Flavortown.
Yeah.
So they fire Hugh. They fire Haley, which I thought for sure preliminary reports were the team was being turned over to Haley. But
yeah, that's what all of us fought for about 3 hours.
Yeah, and then it came out like, oh no, we fired his fucking ass too. So okay, sure.
Yeah.
So now you get Greg Downeygate Williams, because we, as Falcons fans, we don't fucking forget that.
Lord.
Yes, this is the same guy who was suspended by the league for over a season because he was handing out cash prizes to go after body parts on opposing teams. So now he's the head coach by default in Cleveland. There's already being some names thrown around that I've seen. One of them is one of the hotter names in college football who had a very good season last year. I'm sure Caleb's not going to be happy to hear this. Lincoln Riley, the head coach for the University of Oklahoma, is a name that's being tossed out there. He's already said no, he's not interested.
Really?
The reason his name's being tossed out there because Baker was his quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, it would make a lot of sense. Were you willing to depart from?
It was the same reason that when Harbaugh left San Francisco, that Harbaugh's name was tossed in for the Colts, because of this guy. Before Lincoln Riley took over as the head coach for Oklahoma, he was the offensive coordinator. Baker was there for that too, so it makes sense. But Lincoln Riley he's a god in Oklahoma. Year one, you go to the Rose Bowl, regardless of how it turned out. They did well. Lou and Hugh need to start up their own little like boy band or something. The Hugh and Lou Sad Man Band or something. Get Haley playing drums or some shit.
Yeah, something. They can hit up the circuit of nightclubs in that area and just rotate.
I don't understand the hate for Lou. To me, this is for Tyronn Lue. This is almost as bad as when David Black got fired. Like they went to the finals the year before, had the best record at the All-Star break, and then he gets fired. Tyronn Lue went to how many? I mean, he went to like 3 straight NBA finals and won one. So I mean, that would be like the Miami Heat firing Spoelstra. I mean, Spoelstra is still there. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. I think they should have at least given him to the All-Star break. Nobody's expecting Cleveland to do anything this year, so I don't see why they were so quick to. I'm
pretty much right on the same page with you. I think you remember when we were talking with Zach in one of those preseason NBA discussion threads we had in the group. Side note, if you're not in our Sports Wars community on Facebook, make sure you change that. I had Cleveland at 25 games tops. Got a little bit of pushback from it, but at this point, like,
I'm not gonna lie, man, I was optimistic for him.
Yeah, at this point, that would be a very hopeful scenario, or maybe not, because that means they have just a much less chance to get the number 1 draft pick. 2, I think they did Tyronn Lue a favor in terms of him not having a 50-plus loss season on his resume.
Yeah.
But, and 3, as far as the Browns go, you have this young kid behind center, and now it's like he doesn't have an offensively minded individual in the room. You know, when you're someone who's trying to make the transition into the pro system, much less have success and flourish, like you need someone who's going to be able to assess what your strengths are and adjust for play calling so that you can play to your strengths. Now it's a huge question mark as to who, if anyone, is going to be able to do that for him.
So, I mean, I think one of the I'm trying not to go in on it, like, because like I said, I've got a lot planned for the shitty shout outs for the Cleveland Browns for this.
Right.
But I just going with Lou, like I said, I don't understand the slow start is tough, but It's just, what did you expect? Kevin Love's hurt. Tristan is gonna keep being Tristan. I mean, you're
not much of a bench to speak of.
No, I mean, you're trying to work other guys in. You're trying to see what you have. They just give Larry Nance some big ass extension? Like, what the fuck are y'all thinking? So,
I think it's also somewhat indicative of reasons why LeBron had to make his separation from Dan Gilbert.
As much shit as people talk about, like LeBron, picks his team and he runs the show. You see what happens when he's not there to kind of settle things.
Right.
We're less than 10 games in, Lou's fired, Love is down. If LeBron was still there, everybody would be like, okay, we're going to be okay. Now you got people running around like, what the fuck are we going to do? Like, it's Cleveland. It's Cleveland.
It's a clusterfuck, and that's putting it lightly. Speaking of LeBron, one of the big things that's buzzing within the NBA discourse right now pertaining to his Lakers is the question of whether or not the primary starting role of point guard should continue to be the veteran Rondo, or if they should go ahead and take the plunge and hand the primary reins over to young Lonzo Ball. Given the way that the second game against the San Antonio Spurs closed out, Rondo having a very J.R. Smith-like moment where his instincts should have had him inclinated to score, but he didn't. The play completely falls apart, and lo and behold, the Lakers lose to the Spurs again. Now, granted, it's still very, very early in the season, and from a strategic standpoint, you got to wonder, like, are they going to try to go all out and go for a higher seed so that they don't have to deal with the likes of a Golden State or a Houston in the first round? Or like, what's their trajectory here? You have to wonder if Luke Walton is even thinking that far ahead at this point. How do you feel about Lonzo versus Rondo?
I want to preface this by saying one of my favorite players of all time is playoff Rondo. That motherfucker is cutthroat. He definitely, as some would like to put it, has that Mamba mentality.
Right.
He is absolutely a go for the throat type of player. When he was one of the last stars standing in Boston, I loved watching Rondo playing, man. He is great. With that said, I think you've got to go with Lonzo. Just because LeBron signed a 4-year deal. LeBron's not going anywhere. Rondo signed a 1-year deal. You need to see what you have in Lonzo. At the very least, he's building up trade value. What Lonzo is. Nobody's trading for Rondo, not unless it's a playoff team that thinks Rondo is going to help their last little push. But we've seen what Rondo does if he's not involved. And that, I mean, he got himself out of Dallas. I don't remember how it ended in Sacramento. I know it didn't end well in Chicago.
Yeah.
So I mean that kind of history. It didn't end well in Boston. I think it ended okay in New Orleans. But I think you've got to turn over to Lonzo just so you can see what you've got and see if he can play with LeBron. And I mean, obviously we know he can play with like Ingram and Hart and Kuzma and all them.
Right.
But yes, Rondo is a veteran, steady hand, but I think you got to see what the young kid can do.
Where I'm at with it is, honestly, this would be a pretty easy moment to pile on Rondo. The barometer that I've heard people like Colin Cowherd use is, okay, well, who has Rondo gotten along with and not gotten along with? Rondo is a guy who on his resume has, I didn't get along with Doc Rivers and I didn't get along with Rick Carlisle. And those two are some of the most renowned figures within the league as a whole in terms of just being, like good, down-to-earth just straight to the point guys. No type of nonsense, no type of ulterior motives, not a bunch of professional or personal animus for that matter either. And he couldn't make it work with either one of them, much less all the situations you spoke of. My whole thing is, from an athletic standpoint, like Lonzo Ball, 6'6", he was able to put some decent weight on, and he rehabbed from his off-season surgery fairly quickly. Like he's looking like he's more athletic, like his body is starting to mature into what it needs to be for him to be able to have success at a high level. I say to hell with it, go ahead and put him in there just so that he can get himself accelerated into playing shape all the much faster than what he would have with this whole kind of, let's throw him in intermediately. Let's give the lion's share to Rondo and then kind of to hell with all that. Throw the kid in. He's young. He's got vitality. Let's see what he can do. Because my whole mindset is, okay, you get into the playoffs. If you're hopefully a seed in the middle and you get to avoid a Golden State or a Houston, what counts for more? Knowing what he is then or figuring out what he is then? Because I feel like by that point, they need to know.
Yeah. I mean, and like I said, it's just, to me, the decision here between Rondo and Lonzo, it's going to be very telling of what the goal is for this team. Because if your goal is to win games now, Rondo's the choice. I mean, he's experienced. He's at least still solid. I mean, he's not terrible.
Right.
This is one of my favorite. He was one of my favorite signings of the offseason of anybody. Like I said, Rondo is one of my favorite playoff Rondo is one of my favorite players because playoff Rondo is engaged. He's locked in. Regular season Rondo, not so much. But if their goal is to try to win games now and try to improve seedings, try to get as high as you can, and for all we know, that may be Walton and Magic trying to kind of pander to LeBron, like, hey, we're trying to win. We're trying to do it. Whereas LeBron may not even be thinking of that. LeBron may be like, look, man, I'm here for 4 years. Let's develop the best team possible. And Lonzo may give them the better option. Lonzo may very well develop better than Rondo by the end of the season. I just think if the goal, whatever the goal is, you got to play Lonzo, give him some heavy minutes, at the very least, entice some other team to try to make that trade for him.
Right.
The rumor is Anthony Davis and Lonzo Ball would be a very interesting piece.
It makes a lot of sense, man. LeBron, not just him, but when you speak of LeBron, you have to take into the account that it truly isn't just him. He has a network, he has a system, and whether you're looking at it from a playing standpoint, a business standpoint, how active he is in the community in terms of like a social and a philanthropy, approach, he's kind of got his hands in everything. So there's a lot of different ways that he can approach acquisitions and just making the pitch. And on top of that, being in fucking 70-degree all year, LA doesn't really hurt the situation.
Not at all. LA is very, very nice. I've never been, love to go, but I got to think LA this time of year is a lot better than Cleveland this time of year.
I think you would be accurate, sir. Again, no offense to our Ohio contingency, but at least from a climate standpoint, if nothing else. Now, moving on to our review of all the major things that took place in Week 8 of the NFL. It's rare that we start with a Thursday night game, but lo and behold, the Houston Texans against the Miami Dolphins turned out to be one of the more exciting offerings of all of Week 8. After an abysmal 0-3 start, Deshaun Watson has willed the Houston Texans to 5-3. Against Brock Osweiler's Miami Dolphins, he threw for 5 touchdowns and 239 yards. DeAndre Hopkins had a spectacular circus catch that was called back because of all this nitpicky rule bullshit. But nonetheless, the Texans balled out. Miami, after a pretty decent start, seems to have regressed back to what we feel their true identity is. And Houston is sitting pretty comfortably atop the AFC South. What is your reaction to Watson's resurgence after a very slow start?
I know this is technically Watson's second year.
Correct.
What we tend to forget is that he did miss a significant portion of his rookie year. So there's still a little bit of a learning curve there.
Right.
He let's see, I'm trying to remember how many games he played last year. He played 6, or he started 6, played 7. So we're 15 games in right now. So his record as a starter right now is 8-6. So there was still a little bit of a learning curve. So he's still trying to do things. He already has improved. Like I said, he played 6 games last year, 8 games so far this year. He already has less interceptions than he did last year through more games. So he's still going to make mistakes. But as someone who watched a lot of college football and saw a lot of games with him at Clemson, this isn't surprising.
Right.
His measurables aren't always the greatest. Sometimes he could throw up a dud in stats, and it just does not look great. But then you'll get a game that he just, like, the heart is there. He's playing. It's something you can't monetize. You can't put it. There's nothing that you can. There's no measurable stat to show what he did on a particular play.
Right.
But it's there. You can see it. You know that there are guys in the history of this league who have that you can't measure it. Like, I don't want to say a fucker's name in New England, Joe Montana. We're going to go with Joe Montana. Joe Montana, statistically, his numbers don't blow you away. His numbers aren't super amazing, even relative to the guys that he played with around the same time, the Marinos, the Elways. You stack the numbers up, they don't look good.
Right.
But when you
he
watch
had
them play.
In the moment, he just had that moxie, that swag, that extra bit of, bravado.
One of my favorite Joe Montana stories is they're getting ready to go on the drive in the Super Bowl against Cincinnati. And they walk out to the huddle. This is, everybody's like, shit, this is it. This is going to be the game. This is the drive right here.
Right.
He walks out to the huddle, kneels down, getting ready to call the play. Before he calls the play, he's looking in the stands, and he goes, shit, is that John Candy? Talking to his offensive lineman. He spots the comedian, John Candy, in the stands.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, man, John Candy's here. And immediately, that settled everybody down. Everybody's like, well, shit, okay, he's paying attention to fuckers in the stands. He ain't worried.
Hey, we got this. I'm looking at other shit.
Yeah, he's worried about, man, am I going to get to meet John Candy after the game? Like, that's some next level shit. That shit doesn't show up on a stat. It doesn't show up in a stat sheet. Watson has that kind of magic. And for shit that shows up on a stat sheet, he has more passing touchdowns in his first 15 games than anyone in history. So now that's likely about to be broken by the kid in Kansas City. But because Mahomes hasn't played 15 games yet. But yeah, in his first 15 games, Deshaun has 34 touchdowns. So they have the wide receivers. Speaking of wide receivers, kind of a blow to Houston during this game. They lost Will Fuller for the year.
Yeah, that was rough.
DeAndre Hopkins continues to show that he is one of the most underrated and underappreciated wide receivers in this league. When you hear somebody talking about top 5 receivers, they almost never bring up DeAndre Hopkins, and that is a fucking crock.
It is criminal how seldom recognized, not just what he's doing now, the body of work that he's put together
he's done the last 4 years.
fucking Subway employees and Uber drivers as quarterbacks.
I will never forget that stat he got. Like, was it 2 years ago? He is the only wide receiver in NFL history to have 3 100-yard receiving games in a single season with 3 different quarterbacks.
It's goofy to me. I mean, granted, it's odd that the Texans are kind of this obscure. Yeah, I realize, they're fairly new, they're an expansion team, but nonetheless, Houston is not a small market. It's the 4th largest city in the United States.
No, it's not like he's playing in fucking Buckwheat, Wisconsin. I mean,
no.
I mean, I don't understand. Like,
and two, from an athletic standpoint, DeAndre Hopkins is not a small man.
No,
like, so I just can't put two and two together as far as what's behind that. I don't know if it's from a media standpoint, because maybe despite all the population and ratings, Houston sports doesn't get a ton of recognition, outside of the Astros and the Rockets making it deep into the postseason. But yeah, that shit throws me for a loop, man. It really does.
I mean, if you go into 5 different sports groups, which you don't need, to our listeners, you don't have to do that. Just come to our sports group. It's the best one.
Right.
If you go into 5 different sports groups and ask 10 people in each group, 5 best receivers in the game right now, 2 people might put on DeAndre Hopkins in that top 5. They're gonna go. They're gonna go AB. They're gonna go Julio. They're likely gonna go Odell Beckham. They'll probably go AJ Green. Thielen is starting to make some noise where he's really getting some attention. I'd say he deserves to be in there right now. Right now, I would put Thielen above OBJ just from what he's done.
Oh, easy. And I'm not even like. I don't even most of the time. I have nothing against Odell, but given the totality of that situation, without going too far into it, like I don't have him as a top 5 guy. The production just isn't consistent enough. It's too topsy turvy.
Yeah, and so I mean, Thielen and Hopkins are getting disrespected. Thielen not so much, because Thielen's starting, like I said, he's starting to get a little more. Now that they have a consistent quarterback play, and regardless of what I think about their quarterback in Minnesota, it is at least consistent, 8-8 consistent.
Right. No, he's he is absolutely getting it done. And we're going to be talking about him a little bit more later. But yeah, I think I think there's a little bit of residual, like, holy shit, a white guy not in a fucking Patriots helmet is balling out there.
Yeah.
Moving right along to one of the main matchups that we reviewed that I was looking forward to. I know that you were curious about from a divisional standpoint. Cam. I know this is like borderline torture for you. Cam Newton and the Carolina Panthers going against the number 1 ranked total defense in Baltimore. Cam passes for 219 yards and 2 touchdowns, rushes for 52 yards and a rushing touchdown. McCaffrey, Moore, Olsen, all looking very sharp, as well as Carolina's defense. Went up against a very solid Baltimore roster at home and pretty much dominated them all 4 quarters. What do you think is really at the heart of it? I mean, I know this is kind of an extension of our conversation from last week, but you have the North Turner element. They put some decent talent in terms of drafting more. The defense goes out and picks up Eric Reed. There seems to be a lot of moving parts for Carolina's strong start, but they're 5-2 right now, man.
If you would have told me that Baltimore's defense was going to hold Cam to under 220 yards passing, and Carolina would not have a rusher over 52 yards, I would have said there's no fucking way Carolina wins this. There's no way.
Right.
Because, I mean, while Cam did not play excellent, he also he played efficient.
Right.
He he didn't blow anybody away, but he also didn't blow the game. No interceptions. 219 yards. The biggest thing that jumps out is 21 of 29 passing. Those are very good passing numbers. Because usually back in the day, Cam's usual stats probably would have been something around like 14 of 29 or 16, 17 of 29, something like that.
Like 21 of 39 or some shit like that.
And he was efficient, which is huge for them. And I think that speaks to even more the talent that Cam has and that this team has, is that they don't need Cam during their Super Bowl run, the MVP year for Cam. They kind of needed him to, hey, we need you to throw 250 plus yards and rush for almost 100 for us to win. And he did. He had a great year. And now, as we've seen it many times, as an athletic quarterbacks, as they get older and that athleticism starts kind of taking a step back, their game starts to fall off a little bit.
Right.
In this case for Cam, Norb has been the best thing to happen to him because he's allowed Cam to see other aspects of the game. He's looking at, like I said, he's far more efficient. Cam played great. Flacco completed one more pass on 10 more pass attempts. That's what we were just talking about. That would have been Cam's numbers last year.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it seems to me, not just talking about Cam, but Carolina's success as a whole, I feel like the most significant factor is that Cam is seeing the entirety of the field. Like, he's evenly distributing the ball. He's not force feeding it to Olsen. He's not force feeding it to Funchess. Like, he's going with what the best read is most of the time. And then, of course, when you have a guy as talented as McCaffrey as kind of a wild card, it makes everything all the much better.
Definitely. And I actually wanted to bring up the stat me and you talked about before we started recording.
Right.
And shout out to Jimmy for this one. I'm giving your boy Cam credit. I'm not even giving him half credit.
Shout out to Troll God.
Because sometimes I'll be like, well, Cam's doing great, but none of that this time. The highest passer rating quarterback in the red zone, the highest passer rating by a quarterback in the red zone in the league so far is Cam Newton, and it's not close. Cam, I think the top quarterback passer rating is like 158.3. Cam has 120.7 as his passer rating. That's 7 points higher than the next closest guy, who is Tom Brady. Cam is having a great year. His numbers are up. Like I said, the one that sticks out to me is not his passing touchdowns. It's not his the interceptions or lack thereof this year. The thing that is sticking out the most is his completion percentage. I know if you've listened to this podcast more than a couple of times, whenever I talk about Cam, I talk about his completion percentage. Kelvin Benjamin talked shit about it during the offseason. His completion percentage this year is he's blowing his career mark out of the water. His completion percentage through 7 games is 66.4. That's his career completion percentage is 59. Tell me North Turner hasn't made a difference.
Oh yeah. That, I know from a number standpoint, that doesn't sound like it's a huge increase. No, it's percentage wise, that's like almost otherworldly.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean,
guys work for 2 and 3 seasons consecutively to get that kind of output. And then the other thing that kind of stands out to me in terms of what they're doing right now, it doesn't always show up in a ton of sacks per se, but Carolina's front seven, they're pretty mean. Like, they go to work. It might not always be a sack, but they're going to pressure the shit out of a quarterback, particularly if your offensive line is anything less than mediocre.
Yeah, I mean, we all thought this was going to end up being a better game. And even the score kind of is misleading. I mean, it was 36-21, but I think that last Baltimore touchdown really came in like garbage time.
It was definitely a late,
Yeah, looking at it here, there was a minute. There was a minute to go in the game.
Yeah.
By then, it was 36-14, and that was only after the Panthers had pulled up because they had one drive before that ended in a field goal when they rightfully could have gone for a touchdown.
Right.
The defense for Carolina, I mean, everybody was talking about the defense for Baltimore. Baltimore didn't get a single sack. Carolina got a couple. I mean, it's just, I don't know, man. It's they put a lot of pressure on Flacco. Flacco it just felt like he was kind of running for his life. Lamar Jackson actually looked good. He got a little more playing time. I actually got to see him a little bit more than I've been able to see him all year. He had as many passing touchdowns as Flacco did. So
yeah, and this combo formation shit that they're calling, where Flacco goes out and lines up as a wideout. You can just see it, even though he's wearing a fucking helmet. You can just see it on his face. He despises that shit. Absolutely hates it. But yeah, I'm going to be very intrigued to see if Carolina can keep this up. Now, granted, as you say, well, first off, your Falcons are no pushover against them because they always play each other close. And two, if they can so much as split with New Orleans, they might be in decent position for a wild card. Yeah. It's going to be interesting.
Carolina has got they got some games coming up here. They've got obviously they have Tampa next week. We can talk. I just think we're talking on that a little bit later. At Pittsburgh, at Detroit, Seattle, at Tampa, at Cleveland, and then they have to end the season, 2 of the last 3 weeks, they have New Orleans twice. They end the season at home, New Orleans, at home, Atlanta, and then at New Orleans.
That's pretty vicious.
So, I mean, they Carolina is going to be a Los Angeles Rams fan this week. They are definitely rooting hard for the Rams because that would certainly
it's going to directly affect their fortunes.
Yes,
long term, regardless of what happens. So to kind of revisit how we started the podcast off, lo and behold, the straw that broke the camel's back for the ownership in Cleveland again was just another ho-hum loss to Big Ben and the Steelers. In Pittsburgh, James Conner rushed for 146 yards and 2 touchdowns to complement a 2-touchdown and 257-yard passing performance from Big Ben Roethlisberger. Pittsburgh's pass rush harassed rookie Baker Mayfield for the duration of the afternoon. Cleveland showed some spark and a whole lot of fight, but they just weren't able to put together consistent enough drives to stay in the running. And once the score got away from them, it was pretty much a wrap from there. We already kind of covered the turmoil on Cleveland's side. What do you think this suggests for the Steelers moving forward?
I mean, I don't think it means a whole lot. I mean, they beat Cleveland. I mean, this is they should be 2-0 against Cleveland this year. They're 1-0-1.
Yeah, that O in the middle really is like what?
Yeah, that the bigger question is, I think, is what would have happened had this been another tie or even worse, a loss. It probably would have saved Hugh's job, at least for this week, and it probably would have put Tomlin on the hot seat.
Really, that's bold considering Pittsburgh's ownership.
I mean, they don't make hasty moves, so I don't think Pittsburgh doesn't strike me as the type of team that would fire a coach in season. Same as the Giants. I mean, they didn't fire McAdoo last year during the season, right? I don't think they did.
I think they might have. My memory is kind of on that in particular is kind of vague. Let's take a look here.
Wait a minute, that's not.
Because there was the whole controversy when, of course, he benched Eli, and then they came out to Oakland and played us, and we basically trashed them.
Let's see. He was fired on December 4th. So, yeah, I want to say that is December 4th. Yeah, that's in the season. So, yeah, that's kind of crazy. They usually aren't a team that fires their coach in season like that.
Right.
So, I mean, I think Pittsburgh is one of those that they don't. Pittsburgh likes to kind of hang their hat on there. Oh, we've only had 3 coaches in the franchise's entire history, whereas the Browns have had 3 coaches in the last 6 years. Hell, 5 years, I think, because they had Mike Pedden for like 1 year.
Yeah.
So it's I don't Pittsburgh. I think with this win against Cleveland, it helped them mask a lot of bullshit that people aren't. Pittsburgh fans, they to me they seem like they like to kind of ignore what everyone else sees.
Mm-hmm.
They're 4-2-1. They beat Cleveland. They beat Tampa. They beat an injured Atlanta team. And they beat Cincinnati. They have real estate in Cincinnati's head. They should win that.
Right.
The next 3 games are going to be huge for them. They very well could be 4-5-1 by the end of this. At Baltimore, Carolina comes to Pittsburgh, at Jacksonville. Then they, I guess, have a week off by going to Denver, and then the Chargers come to town to Pittsburgh. So they don't have an easy stretch by any means. They're about to hit the hard part of their schedule. Their road games for the rest of the year: Baltimore, Jacksonville, Denver, Oakland, New Orleans. That's not counting the Patriots and Chargers coming to town. They very well could lose. Oh. They very well could lose. Let's see: Baltimore, Carolina, Chargers, Patriots, Saints. They could lose 5. If they lose 5, that's 7 losses. 9-7-1. They go 5-5 the rest of the year. Excuse me, that's not 9-7-1. They wouldn't go 5-5. They would be 8-7-1. Which in that division, depending on what Cincinnati does, is likely missing the playoffs. Depending on what Baltimore does.
My big takeaway is that with Pittsburgh, it's not a case of a lack of talent by any means.
No, it's
not even a case of bad scheme. It's just a lack of attention to all the little minute details. And that's what is always going to separate them from New England, in my opinion, because New England has been their Achilles heel. New England is the hump that they can't seem to get over when they get hot late in the season. And to be honest, I don't know if Big Ben is ever going to beat New England again for the rest of his career, because there's always some little situational shit that they just can't get right.
Honestly,
and like you say, wins like this takes it from being at the top of their list of priorities, like, hey, we need to correct and assess all this shit, and just pushes it down, sweeps it under the rug for another week.
Yeah, it's just instead of, okay, we've still got some issues, it's, oh yeah, fuck yeah, we won, let's go to next week.
Yeah.
And honestly, my thoughts on Pittsburgh, the issues in Pittsburgh, I think there's too many cooks in the kitchen. Can we say that Mike Tomlin is undisputably the leader of that team?
By not by any means.
Is Ben?
I mean, some of the stuff we've heard about the growing generation gap and cultural gap between Ben and a lot of the guys he's playing around. I mean, I swear,
we still don't have an answer to the Le'Veon Bell situation.
And that, I mean,
so
we're gonna get into trade rumors in a second here, but like we always say, a win is a win. But I think the real test of the grit and the patience of that Steelers fan base is to come. There are going to be some stressful ass games. I'm not 100% sure their game out here against my awful Raiders isn't going to be stressful for them.
No, I just depending on obviously in the next trade deadline is Halloween.
Yes,
tomorrow is it Tuesday, Wednesday?
It's either tomorrow or the day after.
Okay, depending on how the Le'Veon Bell situation plays out in the next couple of days, whether they listen to those offers and take somebody up on it, or if I just think right now they are ignoring when you go to the bathroom and somebody takes a shit in the bathroom and they spray that awful ass spray and it doesn't improve the smell. It just makes it smell like someone's shit on a pine tree. That's right. Pittsburgh right now. Someone's shit on a pine tree in Pittsburgh. It doesn't mean someone didn't take a shit. It just means that they're just, hey, we won, and that old saying, winning's the best cologne. So right now, Pittsburgh is shit in a pine tree, and depending on what they do week to week, it's
it might just turn into a larger pile.
And Pittsburgh fans are Stevie Wonder that shit. They're just like, oh, it looks good right now. We're winning.
Oh yeah, man. We got some zinger analogies this week, man. And moving on to the Sunday night game, a rematch of arguably the most infamous playoff moment of easily the last 5, maybe the last 10 years. The bane of the existence of New Orleans faithful all over the country and the world, the Minneapolis Miracle. In the waning moments of the NFC divisional round, Case Keenum throws up a prayer, and God himself answers it, puts the ball right into the hands of Stephon Diggs. Stephon Diggs takes 2 milliseconds to realize he hasn't been tackled. Like, holy shit.
He hasn't been
nothing
tackled.
But grass in front of him.
Yeah, he hasn't been tackled. Both feet are in bounds. No one's behind him.
What the fuck? Oh, shit, I should run. Runs, boom, game over. A lot of people complain about Joe Buck and how monotone he apparently is. I'm not one of those people, but when Joe Buck was excited as shit, you know it's a big deal. You know it's a tremendous, huge, oh my God, what the fuck just happened? This game was nowhere near as exciting as that.
No, it wasn't.
And that's just the honest to God truth. The Minneapolis Miracle, Vikings fans, State fans, both of you, that shit is long gone. This game here started off pretty interesting and pretty evenly matched, and then a few really out-of-character turnovers turned out to be the difference of it. This was a weird game. Drew Brees threw for less than 100 yards and threw a fucking interception, and New Orleans still won by over 14 points.
They won by 10.
Well, yeah. Well, they were leading by 14 at one point.
Yeah.
They ultimately won by 10.
Garbage
points. I know you're probably about to lay into Mr. Diet Water, so I'm going to let you take the floor.
This is another one like the Carolina game. If I would have told you, or someone would have told me, Drew is going to throw for 120 passing yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, and their leading rusher is going to be Mark Ingram with 63 yards and no touchdowns, you would have wondered how the fuck. There's no way New Orleans wins. And Mr. Diet Water throws for 350 plus yards and 2 touchdowns. They also have 2 100 plus yard receivers. Adam Thielen doing his thing yet again.
Right.
And they can't. It doesn't get 7. They score a garbage touchdown with 4 minutes to go. The Saints are pretty much in control from about midway through about halftime on. Because the Vikings did have a lead. They were leading 13-7 at one point, and they didn't score another point until it was garbage time. So this New Orleans team has got to be kind of scary because in the past, if Drew Brees had that stat line, they are blown the fuck out.
Yes.
If Drew Brees only throws for 120 passing yards, the Saints are fucking losing. There's no doubt. The New Orleans defense did their thing. I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy to me. They scored like I said, New Orleans defense scored a touchdown. Big turnovers. I mean, they got a couple or at least one interception. Pick 6. Mr. Kirk Cousins, diet water, strikes again. But of course, that's not all. It's not his fault. It's not all on him.
No, that the nature of that interception in particular, the angle of the ball, and just how the defender was coming over, I couldn't believe he let it go, to be honest. And I'm not a Kirk Cousins really like hater or detractor by any means, but that one, like, I was surprised he threw it.
I mean, I can't really say I'm a Kirk Cousins hater. I mean, do you hate vanilla ice cream? I mean, it goes good with other shit. I mean,
yeah.
Kirk Cousins is like, I use water to make ice cubes. Like, that's Kirk Cousins. I mean, he's if he's the most talented guy on your offense, which I don't think he is. I think Adam Thielen is. But if he's top 2 or 3 as far as talent goes on your offense, your team's not going to do well. If you put Kirk Cousins, I'm trying to think of somewhere. If you put Kirk Cousins in Pittsburgh, 10-6, 9-7. Tennessee, no, they're fucked. They are worth. I mean, in Washington, he didn't. Everybody kept telling me, "Oh, look at what he had around him in Washington." They had some solid. That now, granted, they weren't fucking Pro Bowlers. They weren't like world beaters, but they weren't terrible.
No,
and the best he could do was like 7-1. Don't be surprised, Minnesota fans, if this team doesn't get double-digit wins. They've already been kissed with injuries a couple times. They've already. I mean, Minnesota was supposed to be up there with the Rams to start this year. They were the class of the NFC. If you'd asked anyone to start the year, flip a coin. Minnesota, Los Angeles. It's going to be one of those teams. And every what team has Minnesota beat? Quality team has Minnesota beat? Philly?
I would go ahead and throw Philly in there despite their current issues. Like I mean, they're still the defending champions, so I kind of have to.
They beat Philly. They beat Philly 23-21. Barely. It squeaked by 23-21.
Yeah.
Their other wins: San Francisco, Arizona, New York, Jets. They have not beaten anyone. Their 3 losses, 3 of their losses, the ties to Green Bay. We already know what Green Bay is. Their loss to Los Angeles, the Rams. They lost to the Saints. That other the worst loss of the fucking season, as far as I'm concerned, Buffalo, where they were blown out by 3 touchdowns. This Minnesota team is not what everyone thinks they are. That 4-3-1 is a fucking mirage. I don't honestly, looking at the rest of this schedule, Detroit at Chicago, Green Bay plays them again. But this time it'll be in Minnesota, at New England, at Seattle, Miami, at Detroit, and then closing the season out against Chicago. I'll be surprised if they get double-digit wins.
the Detroit game, but in particular at Seattle, that Seattle matchup is going to be extremely telling for them. Now, granted, we don't know what their overall standing is going to be at that point, but just the nature of that matchup, the way Seattle's offense is looking right now,
they need to fire their schedule maker because they go at New England and then 8 days later at Seattle. Cross country.
Yeah, I think they said during the Seattle-New England Super Bowl rematch a few years ago that Seattle to Boston is like literally the furthest distance you can travel in the NFL.
Yeah.
And
I thought it was Seattle to Miami.
It might be a little bit further, but it's close. So yeah, from a stamina standpoint, Minnesota's got a tough sledding. As far as the Saints go, I mean, even if they lose to McVay and company, they're still only going to have 2 losses on the year.
Yeah. New Orleans is looking very good. I don't know, as a Falcons fan, I'm very nervous. Both the Saints and the Panthers are looking very good. At this point, my eye isn't even on the division. My eye is on wild card. Just because it's
realistic.
Well, in order for us to even get back into the division, both New Orleans has got to lose 3 games. Carolina's got to lose 2. So the way those 2 are rolling, man, it's hard.
Yeah, you know, NFC North and South going at it this year is some fucking power football for the most part, man. Yeah. To briefly touch on some of the current trade rumors, NFL trade deadline is coming up very soon. Three names that are really, really buzzing right now. Patrick Peterson's name is not among them anymore. He put out a statement. Arizona's head coach pretty much indicated, like, we're not looking to ship Patrick in spite of what's going on. So I think, to the chagrin of Kansas City fans, I don't really see that happening. I could be wrong, but at this point, I don't think so. However, on the offensive side of the ball, Golden Tate, name is buzzing. Demaryius Thomas, name is buzzing. And of course, the Le'Veon Bell saga continues. And I mean, good God, we could have watched all the Lord of the Rings movies at this point.
Yeah.
What are you hearing with regard to these 3 names and potential landing spots?
Demaryius Thomas is one of the names being brought up. So you mentioned Demaryius. Was it Golden Tate?
And then of course Le'Veon.
Golden Tate and Demaryius, I'm actually both hearing from both of them. They apparently New England has made some calls and they are offering up very high draft picks, first, second, or at least a second rounder, for the likes of Thomas and Tate. Demaryius has been people, especially in our little private chat, have I'm a very big Demaryius Thomas defender. Partially because he's a local guy, man. He's actually he's his hometown is not very far from my hometown.
Right.
If you ever get a chance to read the story of Demaryius Thomas, man, please do. It's a crazy story. But I would like to see him go to a competitor. I don't know who else is really looking for wide receivers. I think Demaryius and Golden Tate, one of the 2 is going to end up in New England, especially considering the rumors coming out now that apparently Josh Gordon is already in the New England doghouse. Apparently he keeps showing up tardy. There were rumors that he was actually going to be benched for at least the first quarter of this game, but I looked over because I was recording during the game.
Right.
I looked over. He was out for the first series. So apparently they didn't Malcolm Butler his ass.
or at least they haven't yet.
No, they haven't yet. But I would think if they were going to do it, they would have done it for the first quarter. It's the Bills.
Yeah.
So the Patriots are said to be buyers looking for wide receivers. Maybe they're having a little buyer's remorse with Josh Gordon. I don't know. Le'Veon Bell, the team that keeps getting brought up for him is the Eagles. Let me say, didn't Ajayi just go down for the year? He's on the IR.
Yeah, I mean, Ajayi is banged up. Of course, we know LeGarrette went to Detroit.
Yeah.
And Corey Clement, like, he's talented, but he's not really an every down kind of guy. Like, they've never looked to utilize him that way. Yeah.
I don't know, some of the I guess one of the more surprising ones that I've heard is although the GM is saying he's not available, but that hasn't stopped people from calling, is Odell Beckham. I've heard Odell's name being brought up. Apparently teams are calling, and the Giants they've been sellers. They traded Eli Apple. They just traded what's his name, Snacks Harrison.
Yeah. To Detroit.
So if I've got to imagine if the right deal is presented, and I gotta imagine it's going to be something that's gonna have to blow them away, but it gives them an opt out. It gives them, they just signed this long deal. If they decide, okay, this isn't working, we need to blow this up. I mean, sorry for tearing off the Band-Aid here, but it's the same thing with Oakland and Derek Carr. If Gruden decides, like, hey, man, I didn't sign this kid to this contract, I want to bring my own guy in. That contract with Carr is as crazy big as it is movable. It's not a crazy deal. Now, like I said, the Giants GM has come out and said, Gettleman has said, like, no, we're not moving him. We're not doing it. But I'm sure they told Eli Apple the same thing a week ago.
Yeah, and now he's enjoying some gumbo, literally probably as we speak right now. I mean, I think I vaguely remember saying in the chat, as the petty Raiders fan that I am, and as a guy who interacts with and deals with the presence of other fans in the AFC West, the second Demaryius Thomas is traded away from the Broncos, I will have no issue with the man at all. Unless that goofy-ass American Revolution Minuteman is what's on the side of his helmet. If he goes from Denver to New England, that's like punching me in the gut to uppercutting me. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
As far as Golden Tate goes, forgive me, I don't 100% know what their cap situation is at the moment, but given their most recent injury, imagine Golden Tate with Deshaun Watson and Nuck in Houston.
Houston is also said to be buyers due to Will Fuller going down.
Yeah.
What if Demaryius Thomas ends up opposite Hopkins?
I mean, really, either one of those would not be a bad complementary piece at all. Now, as far as Le'Veon goes, yes, Philadelphia, their GM, his name escapes me at the moment. I think it's Howie Roseman. Yeah, Howie Roseman. I mean, we've seen the results of what he's done. I mean, he went out and got Alshon Jeffrey, went out and got LeGarrette Blount, and they were able to do it. For them to acquire Le'Veon Bell, I think would be an immediate game changer in the NFC East and would propel them back into being the favorites. Now, granted, I think a 9-7 or a 10-6 can legitimately win the NFC East, because we all know Alex Smith has a ceiling. At some point, he's going to come back down to earth.
I got a fun stat for that, too.
Yeah, Dallas is Dallas, and we all know the Giants are Oakland East right now. if the Eagles with a healthy Wentz were able to really get that ground and pound running game and have a guy who can catch out of the backfield too, that would be a real good look for them. Another name that I hear somewhat buzzing, nowhere near to the same level in terms of Le'Veon Bell, is actually the Jets. To pair him up with Sam Darnold and then have enough cap to probably keep him satisfied, along with whatever draft picks and acquisitions they have, so that they can get themselves into the position to be actually viable moving forward.
A little fun fact. I know you mentioned Alex Smith here. We actually had this discussion in the group last week.
Right.
Since 2011, Alex Smith is has the second most wins out of every quarterback in the NFL. He is only behind Tom Brady since 2011. He's ahead of Drew Brees. He's ahead of Aaron Rodgers. He's ahead of my guy, Matt Ryan. He's ahead of Cam Newton. Alex Smith has 73 wins since 2011. Aaron Rodgers only has 70. So I like, kind of selfishly speaking here, because my Falcons play the Redskins on Sunday.
Right.
To what you were saying about the 9-7, 10-6 being enough to win that division, I gotta agree with you. The Redskins did not look great against the Giants. They didn't. I mean, it was final score was 13-6.
Yeah,
it was an ugly. I mean, and it would have been even worse. I mean, they would have gone to overtime had AP not gotten loose for 60 yards. I mean, it took 70-year-old Adrian Peterson getting loose in the secondary for them to score a touchdown.
He started that run in the Old Testament and ended it in the New. Yeah.
So I mean, the Redskins aren't blowing anybody away. So it's weird, man. Like we've been saying this all year. This fucking season is one of the weirdest seasons of memory. We broke down the what the playoffs would look like right now. If the playoffs started today, we'd have no Vikings, no Eagles, no Packers, no Falcons. The
whole complexion of it is so much different from not just what we would expect, but the last few years postseasons. Like it's like, huh? Who you tell me who's not in it?
Yeah, I mean it's fucking
weird
crazy.
Shit, man. Yeah, it's been odd, and as we move into week 9, we're going to give some more thoughts on the major matchups. I really only see it getting odder. So first up, the Sunday night game, what will, for better or worse, be the most talked about game, bar none. When you go out and get his airness himself, the greatest of all time, period, Michael Jordan, to do the promotional ad for a Sunday night game, that's some major shit, man.
Somebody called in some favors.
Someone pulled some strings. Aaron Rodgers versus Tom Brady. Jeremy's going to be bitching about the result of this game no matter what happens.
Yeah. We can count on old Griggs being fired up about this one.
Oh, yeah.
If Rodgers wins, we're going to hear he's still not fucking better than Brady. If Brady wins, we're going to hear told y'all he wasn't as fucking good as Brady.
If Brady wins, we're never going to hear the end of it, period. Yeah, you have a Packers team that went to LA Coliseum and gave the undefeated Rams the fight of their life. And you also have the dynamic of this Green Bay team, which, again, I still contend their roster really ain't the best. Top to bottom, it's not the most dynamic out there.
I mean,
they have stretches. They have stretches where they play decent, but I mean, compared to some of the other NFC powerhouses, I don't really see it. But it was
churching that up a little bit. I think you're softening the blow as far. They're not that good. The Green Bay roster is shit. I mean, it's terrible. Everybody keeps talking about how Devontae Adams and I don't think he's that good of a receiver. He's okay, but
he's the best fit they've got.
Okay, all right.
And in any case, the whole Ty Montgomery debacle to me was a good example of the level that team is really at in terms of their personnel. Like, whether he was just pissed off for some sort of personal reason or whatever the deal was, you got to have the maturity and the sense of the situation to know what to do. And second off, you kind of need to do what the fuck your coach tells you to do. So that type of stuff going into New England against a Belichick-run organization, even though their defense ain't that great right now, that's not going to get it done for Green Bay. What are your overall thoughts about that debacle and this upcoming matchup?
Oh, I'm not gonna lie, I laughed my ass off. That play, the kick return when Ty Montgomery went full J.R. Smith and just decided, fuck it, I thought we were up, like that kind of shit.
Yeah.
Apparently, the reports I've read is that the previous Green Bay drive, when he was told he wasn't going to go in for that drive, he pitched a fit on the sidelines, throwing helmets, smashed his helmet into the bench area. And then prior to going out there for this kick return, he was told, if you can kneel it, kneel it. And he refused. And he went out there, and obviously that's how the game ended. Apparently there's reports of anonymous Green Bay Packers players just fucking shredding him right now. Not to mention everything going on Twitter with him. There apparently is also video of you can read Aaron Rodgers' lips when Ty Montgomery comes out and he fumbles it and they realize it's a fumble. You can read Aaron Rodgers' lips say, "Kneel the fucking ball." And on top of that, there's also more. There's some second guessing of the coach in there. Somebody is that same anonymous Green Bay player is also talking shit about the decision to run the ball out of the end zone, the one that resulted in the Rams safety. They're openly questioning that play call. So Green Bay's all kind of fucked up right now. And because Green Bay fans think, hey, we got Aaron Rodgers, that just masks all the bullshit.
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't. It really doesn't.
No.
The rest of this team is – I won't full on go say, oh, they're in turmoil. The Green Bay defense, congratulations to them. They actually showed up. And it's funny that we say they showed up because the Rams still scored almost 30 points. And the Green Bay defense probably had the best game they've ever had. Goff was sacked 5 times. He never really got comfortable. He still threw for almost 300 yards, no interceptions. Gurley still did his thing. He didn't get any touchdowns. This was Green Bay's chance to take a swing at right now the team that looks like the undisputed NFC leader, and they botched it. This was their chance to take this swing and do it, and they couldn't. They missed in more than one way. So I think this very much feels like a loss that is going to hang around. And I think it carries over into next week's game against New England. And I think New England kicks the shit out of Green Bay.
I cannot say you're too far off. I feel like this game from New England's standpoint is going to be one of those moments where they kind of rise to the occasion and rise to the moment as they've been known to do in a lot of instances. Right now, literally as we speak, New England's offense is looking pretty mediocre against the Buffalo Bills.
I was just checking that score myself. That we're a quarter and a half in, and they haven't scored a touchdown yet. Like I thought for sure.
Yeah. Now we know New England is a team with very high pedigree. They're very disciplined, but let's take away some of the mystique and kind of just keep it real for a second. These players are human beings. They don't give a shit about the Buffalo Bills on the road. on Monday night. But Sunday night, under the big lights, against Aaron Rodgers, with Michael Jordan pumping up the game, fucking 70% of the dudes in the locker room wearing his cleats and his gear and his shit. That's prime time right there. So I expect Belichick to pull out his bag of tricks. I expect him to be like, oh, so you want to talk about this Sean McVay kid out in LA. I want to talk about how great he is. Yeah, I think he's gonna open up the playbook and just kick the defense's teeth in. Now, as far as Rodgers goes, I think he'll play well because I think just from a pedigree standpoint and how he sees the field, he'll be able to dice up New England's secondary in a very opportunistic manner. But I don't think it's going to be enough to outscore Brady and company. Not by any stretch. If they pull it off, I'm not really sure I would consider it an upset. But if they pull it off, the media is going to go nuts, and Jeremy is just going to have to be off the internet for 2 days. That's it.
The Aaron Rodgers blow bang is going to be terrible.
He better hope they don't win. Moving right along to the victors of that Green Bay matchup that was topsy-turvy and again indicative of this weird-ass season. The 8-0 undefeated Rams are traveling to New Orleans to face a team that a lot of people think they're probably going to meet up with in the NFC Championship. Drew Brees and the Saints have been rolling, and I feel like that first really out-of-character bad performance, they got out of the way against Minnesota, and Brees is going to go right back to being on fire. Who do you think wins this shootout? Because you know it's going to be a high-scoring, just all hell to defense.
I think if it is, in fact, a high-scoring game, I do think that favors New Orleans. Just because even as well as Goff and that offense have played, I don't think that they can keep up. Interestingly enough, looking at the series stats here, the last 4 matchups, the Rams have won 3 of them. So, and those, that dates all the way back to 2011, though. But the last 2, 2016, 2017, actually, the last 5 matchups, the home team has won all 5. So that speaks well for the Saints. Drew Brees isn't a guy who takes a lot of hits, so I'm not worried that Aaron Donald and Ndamukong Suh are gonna get to him. But they've also got a very good secondary. This is going to be my favorite matchup of this week. Sorry, I'm not pumped for Green Bay and New England at all. I personally hate both of those teams. I'm not a big fan of the Saints, so I'm definitely rooting for the Rams here for selfish reasons. There's still questions about whether Cooper Kupp will be back for the Rams. They don't know yet. Still early. They haven't made that decision. Like I said, I would like to see the Rams win it. It's going to be a very good game, very fun game to watch. If I had to pick, I would definitely pick the Rams just because my old motto is defense travels. It doesn't matter what what your offense does. If your defense is solid, defense always travels.
Right.
I still think it's going to be, knowing how this season is going, watch it end up being like 13-10.
Right. Like that oddball as it sounds, that wouldn't surprise me at all. My overall thoughts from a matchup standpoint, we all know Michael Thomas is a monster, but he's going to have that pesky Oakland shit talker Marcus Peters on the other side. So that's going to be real interesting because we've seen Thomas get into people's heads. He got into Josh Norman's head, but him and Peters kind of jawing at each other. that's gonna be real spicy, real testy. The other wild card element in this game that nobody's really talking about, at least from my vantage point, is Brandon Cooks is going to be matched up against a former team again. And the New Orleans defense, the secondary, they got speed guys, but they don't really have hard-hitting guys. So you got Brandon Cooks with extra motivation against a secondary that doesn't have that damn Malcolm Jenkins. He might take it over the top, and it could turn into a situation where if New Orleans gets behind 10, 14 points early, they might have to somewhat abandon the run. So, Kamara gets shelved. I have a tough time seeing the Rams not pull this out. It might be an ugly ass win, like you say, but if they can overcome a really, really slow start from a half decent pass rush in Green Bay, I think they can duplicate that against New Orleans.
I don't think it wouldn't surprise me at all. Like I said, I'm picking the Rams here for just mainly selfish reasons, but mostly because of defense.
Right. Absolutely. Steelers versus the Ravens. I believe, I'm not 100% sure if this is in Pittsburgh or in Baltimore, but either way, my feelings are what they are. I think the shit is going to be palpable to smell against a Ravens team that's lost 2 in a row, is pissed off and irritated, and top to bottom is just executing better. Like fundamentally, they're a lot more sound than I think Pittsburgh is right now. I think Baltimore kicks their teeth in.
Makes a difference to you. This one's in Baltimore.
Oh, and Baltimore, they have a sneakily good home field advantage too. Like the crowd up there in Maryland is not bad at all.
Now excuse me. I think this is going to be, since Pittsburgh is inconsistent as shit. This is I do believe Baltimore is going to win this one. Pittsburgh, like I said, they'll go back into turmoil because of whatever they decide with Bell. I don't see Bell. Honestly, I don't see him playing this year. He may end up signing just so he doesn't lose that. What's the year of service? That way he doesn't. This year applies. So I don't see him playing for them regardless of whatever happens with the trade deadline this week. But this game in Baltimore, like you said, Baltimore's pissed. They've lost the last 2 games. The game last week against Carolina, they should probably feel a little embarrassed by, but they haven't lost the last 2 games they've lost. They haven't lost to bad teams. They've lost to the Panthers and the Saints. Now, barring that game against Cleveland, but their 4 losses are Cincy, Cleveland, New Orleans, and Carolina. Now that New Orleans game
which were because of field goals.
Yeah, the New Orleans game they lost by 1 point. If you line Justin Tucker up to kick that extra point 100 times, he's only going to miss that one. So so that to me is I don't even I won't even sweat that one. They're going to show up for this one. They're going to be pissed. They are going to. I certainly believe they're definitely going to beat Pittsburgh here.
Yeah, we're in agreement top to bottom with that one. And then the last matchup that we're going to go ahead and cover here, your Falcons versus the NFC East leading Washington Redskins. The Redskins, they've been able to put it together, although they haven't looked stellar in their last 2 wins against the Giants and the Cowboys. Both were pretty close up until the waning moments. But, Alex Smith, the ancient one, Adrian Peterson, Paul Richardson, the former Seahawk, out there making some half decent plays. How do you feel about this matchup for your Falcons?
I mean, it's like you said, it's an Alex Smith led team, so you don't get. I'm not shaking in my boots. I mean, Alex Smith is basically an older Kirk Cousins. He doesn't make a lot of mistakes, but he's not going to win you a whole lot of games. So their offense doesn't blow me away. I'm not scared of 93-year-old Adrian Peterson. I mean,
I imagine you're not scared of your old buddy Josh Norman either.
No, not at all. Not at all. Him and Julio go way back. He's actually one of the greatest quotes I've ever heard was they were when they do that off season, that top 100 players. And whenever Julio's brought up, they always interview cornerbacks like, oh, who's going to make you work the hardest? And Josh Norman brought it's Julio. It's always Julio. Because one of the frustrating things about Julio is he doesn't respond to trash talk. You can trash talk him all day. He's just going to smile at you and then run your ass over and then smile at you when he gets up. He's just going to hey, and then walk back to the huddle and not say shit. Honestly, that would be frustrating as shit for me to watch too, just because you're giving this guy your best shot and he's manhandling you and then just smiling at you and not responding to the trash talk.
Not saying a word.
Yeah, just, hey, I just picked you up, another grown-ass man, and pushed you back 10 yards, blocking for my running back. And I'm just going to jog back to the huddle and not say anything. I'm doing my job and frustrating as shit.
Yeah, Julio. He's a hard hat and lunch pail kind of guy.
He's all that. That was the quote this past week. Because don't get me wrong, the Falcons fans aren't. We know that there's an issue with Julio and these fucking touchdowns. We don't know how to explain it.
Out of all the Twilight Zone shit that is happening this year, that's got to be near the top. It has to be.
It's pretty high. But it dates back to last year. I mean, we're still trying to figure out what the fuck, how in the fuck this is even happening. I'm actually looking for the quote now. Somebody interviewed Julio, hey, what's the deal with the touchdowns? Well, why aren't you? Because that's one of the criticisms we hear in the group from the Antonio Brown, Odell Beckham fans is that
touchdowns. Not scoring no touchdowns.
Not even that. It's Odell and Antonio would start shouting at people, "Give me the damn ball in the end zone," and it fires up his team. And to me, that seems kind of counterintuitive. Plus, that's not Julio's personality.
No.
The quote from Julio is, "I got 6 eyes on me," or "I got 4 eyes on me. If other guys are scoring, I'm happy to be great. I want to bring other people with me." Julio doesn't give a fuck about touchdowns. Would it be nice? Would our offense be clicking like blowing on all cylinders? Can you imagine if Calvin Ridley scoring 5 touchdowns and then Julio scoring 5 or 6 touchdowns so far this season? We'd average 50 fucking points a game.
The point differential would be something to almost give you a headache, thinking of the actual logistics of it.
It's crazy.
Insanity.
With that said, this game, I don't fucking know, man. We could come out and we could score 40 points and just blow Washington away. Or Alex Smith could come out and pick the secondary part. I like to think that we've made some adjustments that's going to slow whoever we're playing down. This does kind of give me flashbacks to the Super Bowl run. Not that this team is as good as that Super Bowl run, but it was the same sort of, in order to beat teams, we're going to have to outscore them because our defense isn't stopping shit.
Right.
And then there were a couple, everybody acted shocked when I know I'm bringing up a sore subject for myself here. Everybody acted shocked when the Patriots came back. If you go over that season, we did that several times. It happened a lot.
Right.
the only difference being was that our offense they kept scoring. So the team that they'd come back, they'd score like 17 unanswered points, but we'd still be up a touchdown, and then our offense would score again. So that happened several times that year. So it wasn't really surprising. We could come out here and score 40 points. We could go out there and give up 45. I don't know what our defense is going to do. Injuries are absolutely fucking destroying us. Our kicker was injured last week. I mean, dude, this is the shit we're dealing with. Going down our IR injury report. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 starters. They're all starters on our injury. Ricardo Allen, Andy Levitri, Deion Jones, Keanu Neal, Brandon Fusco. Those are 2 guards, Levitri and Fusco. Our interior offensive line is shit. Devontae Freeman on the IR.
And you bring up Devontae Freeman, I wonder what his future is going to be. Arthur Blank strikes me as one of the guys who's becoming more well known as one of the more regal owners in the league. Someone who's not going to get in the way, is not going to stick his nose into the business of actual X's and O's, X, Y, and Z. Like, he seems like the guy who's going to let people do what they're supposed to do.
Yeah.
However, if I'm him, I am at least wanting to have some sort of dialogue with the strength and conditioning staff just to get some kind of insight to, like, well, you know, what is it that you guys think might be happening?
We are switching from Gatorade to whole milk in the locker room. Everybody's drinking milk. let's strengthen some bones and some ligaments.
Yeah.
Shit, man. Damn.
Something. You know, like, do we need some steak and potatoes? Like, you guys on all that hydrogenated fucking avocado kale stuff. What's his face is on? Like,
avocado kale milkshake shit don't work in Atlanta. We live in deep fried territory. Get these boys some sausage biscuits or sausage and gravy and fried chicken and waffle shit. Like, feed them.
Like, put some meat on these kids' bones, because this shit ain't it. As far as the actual game, I think this is a trap game for Redskins fans and supporters. I think Atlanta's probably going to take it to them from an offensive standpoint.
Hey, you know what?
And just outscore them.
I didn't even think of that as a trap game, but you got a point. You definitely have a point that it absolutely could be a trap game for them.
Given Atlanta's record, squared up with Washington's, but the talent, even with the defensive woes being what they are, I think Atlanta smokes them, actually. But as we close out, you mentioned that you have some extra spicy stuff for Roy's shitty shout outs this week.
Yes. I would definitely like to give actually, I have 2 shitty shout outs, but the main one is dedicated to the Cleveland Browns and their treatment of Hugh. Hugh fell on the sword for this franchise of rebuilding. He wasn't the GM, so they can't blame him for some of the bonehead fucking decisions that were made, trading down. That they basically traded the pick that became Carson Wentz. They did okay with Myles Garrett, who's starting to look like a damn star. They stuck with Josh Gordon. They were as loyal as they could be to the guy. Hugh has been the face of the failure of this franchise for 3 years and gets more wins this year than he had in the previous 2 years combined, and they fired him. A fun stat, obviously not fun for Hugh, but a stat that I saw Adam Schefter brought up. I don't know what it is about the Pittsburgh game, but the last 5 Cleveland head coaches that were fired after the second Pittsburgh game of the year, immediately after. So that's just a weird that's something weird to think about. Hugh has kept these dudes competitive for 3 years while watching his front office give shit away. They wasted draft picks. Corey Coleman comes to mind. He was given RG3 as a reclamation project. Josh McCown.
Like, hey, try to fix this situation.
Yeah. Hey, we have a roster spot with Josh Gordon, but he's not gonna play for you. Everything is unsettled. They traded away, they stockpiled draft picks and marched shit out there for Hugh to coach. And then they finally have some kind of talent that people in Cleveland were legit, people outside of Cleveland. Their draft this past year, the draft picks that they got, I was excited for them. I'm like, man, it's going to be solid in Cleveland. They're finally getting some talent. They went out, I can't remember if they traded. Yeah, they traded for Landry.
Yeah.
They draft Chubb. Everybody knows I'm a Georgia guy. Nick Chubb, I was excited for him. Now they've traded Carlos Hyde. They trade Josh Gordon. And all this while Hugh is just smiling, and they bring in Hard Knocks, and that Hard Knocks curse strikes again. Everybody it's just –
it's ridiculous.
I watched the Hugh as the face of this franchise, and he just took every question, stood in there like a man. Hey, what the fuck are y'all doing? The butt of every joke. Meanwhile, he's watching LeBron and the Cavs go to the finals every year. He's watching the Indians go to World Series. He's watching the Indians do well. Meanwhile, the Browns are going to continue to Browns things up because their ownership and the GM sucks. It's fucking terrible what they did to Hugh. I know that everybody's going to say, oh, yeah, he needed to be fired. The coach said Greg Williams, Mr. Bountygate, is he going to turn them into a playoff team this year? You couldn't coach it out for the rest of the year. So my other shitty shout out is I'd like to bring back a character for us. Mr. Fitzmagic is back as a starting quarterback for the Tampa Bay Bucks, officially named the starting quarterback today. I don't know if that stands for the rest of the season or just until he fucks up.
Whichever comes first.
Yeah. My shitty shout out is not towards Mr. Fitzpatrick, Mr. Fitzmagic. It is to Jameis Winston. You have been given this job on a silver platter repeatedly. You missed the first 3 games of the year and somehow are still tied for the lead with most interceptions in the league. Ryan Fitzpatrick is a journeyman quarterback, and the offense looks smoother than it ever did under you. Deshaun Jackson was a shiny new play toy that was brought in for you to extend that offense, to take advantage of that arm, and you just can't get your shit together.
He actually requested a trade.
Yeah, when Winston was named the starter, he requested a trade. Now that Fitzpatrick is back, maybe he's going to be sharing tracksuits and aviators with Mr. Fitzpatrick again. So whoever they're playing this week, watch out. He almost had some magic there to end the Cincinnati game if Dalton doesn't lead them into field goal territory. Fitzmagic is back. Winston is done in Tampa. Winston is done. Dirk is done. They're cleaning house.
We actually have one common shout out, and I have 2. But my first one is also to Jameis Winston. On and off the field, Russell Wilson, Cam Newton, Patrick Mahomes, and Deshaun Watson. Yes, we're going to talk about the taboo race. Yeah, they're black guys who are quarterbacks. On and off the field, they're all doing exemplary. Yet crab legs can't fucking get it right in either place. How is that possible?
That has been the one thing that I've pounded on since he was at Florida State. It wasn't the alleged rape. I'm not even going to dive into that. I could, if you want to argue about it, by all means, Start it up in the group. We'll talk about it. Anybody listening? It was just look up his Wikipedia page, bro. There's so many things that proved his decision making is terrible. Decision making translates on the field, off the field. You never see a quarterback who has shitty decisions off the field do well on the field.
No.
Johnny Manziel. So.
And I know I'm probably going to get a decent amount of pushback from the Cam detractors, but you can hate Cam all you want. You can think his fashion sense is whatever all you want, but be honest. Like, don't continue to hold something from someone's past against him forever and ever and ever. Cam hasn't had any even remote issues for years.
No.
Maturity, sure, but he's playing well and he stays his ass out of bullshit. Sorry, you can not like it all you want. It's true.
Yeah.
My second shout out is to both Bay Area fan bases, my own Raiders and those folks right across the bridge for 49ers. Now, for those of you who aren't, the majority of our audience is not in the Bay Area. Those of you who don't haven't been exposed to it, these two fan bases really, really don't like each other. It's not quite on the level of like Yankees, Red Sox, or fucking Duke and UNC, but to the shock of a lot of people on the East Coast, it's close. There's a lot of bad blood between these two fan bases. The whole moving to Vegas, this, that, and the third has only made it worse. Both fan bases kind of need to shut the fuck up. Both teams are 1-6. Now, granted, with the Niners, it's because of health, and with the Raiders, it's because of just a multitude of bullshit. But at the start of this year, all of this was going on. Everybody was flapping their gums. Everyone was talking their shit. Everyone was on about how their team, as opposed to the other team, was going to be 10-6 or 11-5 and 12-4. Very early on, and you can go on my Facebook page or my fucking Twitter and look at what I was saying around the time, mid to late August. I said very early on, neither Bay Area team is going to amount to much of shit this year. And I think it's pretty safe to say I was vindicated. Did I think Jimmy G was going to go down? No, but I didn't think he was going to be the one to lead them to the promised land of getting past the Rams and past the Seahawks. And as far as the Raiders go, even before the Mac trade, I'm like, looking at our schedule, this feels like 8-8. They shipped Mac, that immediately went to, okay, we're probably going to go 5-11. Right now, we'd be lucky to go 3-13. And coming up this Thursday is going to be the battle of who can lose to maintain their shot at a number one pick. And that's really all I got. That's all we got for you this week, folks. Obviously, we covered a lot. Be on the lookout for more content because there's going to be a whole lot more to discuss coming up next week. Congratulations to the Boston Red Sox on their World Series victory. Shout out to our boy Thomas, big Red Sox fan, big supporter of everything that Geeks and Gamers does. We're happy for you. We're probably not happy for Boston as a whole, but we're definitely happy for you, homie. And other than that, like, comment, subscribe, check out the rest of the Geeks and Gamers podcast network. If you would like to become a patron, you can support our Patreon. And again, if you're not in our Facebook community, type in Sports Wars, Geeks and Gamers in the Facebook search engine. We'll pop right up with the best group to be in for sports. And that's all we got for you. We'll catch you all later. Deuce.
Peace. Fuck Tom Brady.